It's the happiest day of my life, becoming a groom one more time and marrying the girl I love the most. This time, I didn't run away from my own wedding. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I did it 7 years ago. Hi all, my name is John, and next to me are my wife, Rose, and my son, David. Now that we've done everything, I have time to tell you all our story. Rose and I knew each other since we were teenagers. Rose has been my side through the ups and downs. Thanks to the support from both families, we decided to get married. 7 years ago, on our wedding day, Rose looked stunning in the white wedding dress that we picked together. I knew how much Rose was excited about that day because she couldn't sleep the night before. I was on the phone with her the entire time. However, after calming her down, I became anxious myself. I was nervous and started to feel like I was about to make a mistake. Would I be able to make a good husband for Rose? Could I make her happy? I'm full of flaws. Was that why Rose was worried about me all the time? Those thoughts kept bothering me to the point that I stood up and grabbed my suitcase. Stuffing some changes of clothes into it, I ran away. I know I was pathetic for doing that. I was like a loser, running away from my debt, even though I didn't owe anybody money. If Rose had seen me then, she must not consider me again. And of course, I didn't show up for my wedding, leaving Rose alone on the aisle, searching for me hopelessly. She wouldn't give up hope, even when everyone else had left. In the end, she just collapsed and finally burst into tears. She finally admitted the fact that I had left her on our important day. I ran to a city far away from where I used to live. I rented a small place and kept myself busy with alcohol and painting. I painted during the daytime, and when the night fell, alcohol was my close friend. When I was drunk, the image of Rose would always show up, making me miss her terribly and tempted to give her a call, but I didn't dare to. I only picked up my phone and listened to her voicemail over and over again. It was a very old message since our high school days. She said,
"I will always be by your side no matter what."
And I'd cry myself to sleep. Before I knew it, 7 years had passed. I became a famous painter with some galleries across the nation. I hired a personal assistant to work with clients on my behalf because I didn't want to show my face. I didn't even sign my work with my real name. Rose had no idea how famous I had become. To be fair, she must have stopped caring about me a long time ago. It was a rainy day, and I was lying on my couch, on my phone, just repeating Rose's voicemail. Suddenly, my assistant rushed in. "Your father just passed due to a traffic accident. I'm terribly sorry." I was dumbstruck and couldn't think. I rushed out of the door while my assistant was trying to hold me back. "If you go back, all the memories would bother you again. This is not doing you any good." What else could matter more right now? My dad is gone. I honestly didn't know how I got to my dad's funeral. I saw my little sister crying in front of his casket while it was being lowered down to the ground. I dragged my feet, got closer, and got down on my knees. 7 years had passed, and I never visited him. I never checked in on him once. I knew that he came to find me once, but I tried to avoid him. I let my assistant talk to him and tell him to leave. I felt so guilty. It was my fault that my parents were no longer with us. When I was 7 years old, my mom passed after saving me from drowning. I never protected anybody in my life, only causing them pain. I'm such a loser. The casket was fully lowered down. Each person threw their flower as a goodbye to my dad. Rose and David were the last two. They held my sister tightly to let her know they were there for her. Rose took David's hand and walked past me. I wanted to tell her how much I missed her, but I couldn't utter a word. I was still deep in my thoughts when Rose slapped me hard across the face.
"You're such a jerk! You think you can just show up here after 7 years?"
Rose looked like she was going to burn me alive at that moment, but David's innocent voice broke the tension.
"Mommy, why did you hit him?"
He's a bad guy. He deserves it. When you grow up, I will allow you to become someone like him.
Yes, Mommy.
She pulled David away before I could say anything. In my mind were so many questions. Is she married? Who is her husband? Is that her son? Out of nowhere, my sister appeared and punched me hard. I was angry. What are you doing?
Ask yourself that question. What have you done to her? Do you know who that boy is? You don't deserve to be here.
And then she walked away, leaving me so confused. Could the boy be... I suddenly realized the truth and chased after Rose. I made it to her place before she got inside. I grabbed Rose by her arm, but she could already push David inside.
What do you think you're doing?
I want to know if David is my son.
Who are you to ask me that? You don't deserve him as your son.
The door suddenly swung open and David stepped out, crying.
But I've always wanted a dad.
Rose and I stopped arguing. She hugged David and cried. The boy tried to calm her down.
If what I say upset you, then it's okay, Mom. I'm not going to ask for dad anymore.
No, my dear. That's not fair to you. He's your dad.
I couldn't believe what I just heard. Before I could react, David already rushed over to hold my leg. I picked him up and took a closer look at him. Turned out that after I left, Rose found out she was pregnant. She decided to keep the baby and become a single mom. I had no idea how much I'd put her through that entire time. Looking at them both, at that moment, I regretted my actions terribly. I wanted to give them everything I had to make up for not being in their life the past 7 years. After that day, I was with David and Rose all the time. I wanted to give David all the daddy and son time that he couldn't have growing up. I got along very well and naturally. He enjoyed my company a lot, to the point that Rose even became a bit jealous. One night, when I was putting David to bed, he asked me why I had left his mom in the past. I struggled to answer him, but eventually, I told him the truth, that I was too young to tell right from wrong. But I came to realize what mattered most to me after all. I belong here. My answer pleased both Rose and David. Rose came over to hold me. She forgave me, making me feel hopeful again. We watched David fall asleep before leaving his room. The feeling of living all together as a family was so strange, but also happy for me. My relationship with Rose gradually became better. She became more open with me, and we almost got back to our loving time before. We had some awesome date nights as well. Everything went by so peacefully until one day when we were out camping by the river. When Rose and I were busy starting the barbecue, we heard my sister screaming.
Oh my God! Help! David fell into the water!
Rose immediately dropped everything and jumped into the water to save David, who was struggling to stay afloat. She gave him CPR as soon as they made it to the shore. We were all worried, but what was worth mentioning was the fact that I could only stand there, watching everything. I couldn't move my body, just kept holding my head, trying to clear the image of my mom leaving us after saving me from drowning. I felt completely useless. I couldn't protect my loved ones, and that put me to shame. People would laugh at me. People lost their lives on me. The anxiety made me faint. I woke up in a dark room. Once again, I ran away. It was my spacious room in the other city. I picked up my brush and I kept painting for days. Then days turned into weeks. The room was filled with paintings of Rose and David. I was laying among the paintings, my head empty. My assistant walked in, seeing me like that. "Why are you so stubborn? You obviously love them so much. Would running away like this help you feel better?" He made a good point. This didn't do me any good. My mom's passing must have haunted me more than I thought. It scarred me for life. They said that the more you love someone, the more you're afraid to lose them. Then why shouldn't I learn to protect the ones I love? Why did I continue to hurt them? I found the answer to my problem in that moment. I decided to come back one more time to face the truth. But this time, would they still forgive me? I stood in front of Rose's house for a long time. I tried calling her, but no luck. I kept on waiting until the next morning, Rose finally showed up. Holding her own phone in her hand, she was listening to her own recorded message for me. It was the message that had given me hope to live the past years. I kept the phone dearly by my side, and I treasured that message more than anything. I couldn't recall how many times I had tried to fix that old phone to save the message. After listening to my explanation, Rose forgave me once again. I heard her loving words one more time, but this time, directly from her.
No matter what happens, I will always stay by your side.
We had our wedding for real this time. We had friends and family coming to witness our happiness. I even put up the paintings of Rose and David that I did to show how much they meant to me. After 7 years, Rose still looked as beautiful as she was before, as if time had forgotten her. Seeing her in the white wedding dress, smiling as she walked toward me, I felt like nothing else on earth mattered, and a little angel brought our rings to us. Of course, it was our little David. We vowed to be there for each other until the end of our time, and I was allowed to kiss my bride. I didn't run away this time. I know that life's always full of surprises, and this is not the end. I'll need to learn to be a good husband to Rose and a good father to David, but they'll be the greatest source of support for me to never give up. I love them more than anything else in the universe.